Now I come to Ambassador Anil Wadwa. Ambassador Wadwa served as Secretary in India's Ministry of External Affairs. His diplomatic career includes stints as India's ambassador to Poland and Lithuania, the Sultanate of Oman, the Kingdom of Thailand, and the Republic of Italy and San Marino. He is currently Distinguished Fellow, Vivekananda International Foundation. Not many people may know this. He also was involved with drawing up the Most Favored Nation agreement between India and China way back in 1984. Ambassador Wadwa, we have covered some major issues pertaining to this debate. Now, I would ask you to look at the potential role of the G10 or G11 in shaping geopolitics of the Indo-Pacific region. How will G11 complement plurilateral forums and groupings like the Quad and trilaterals such as India, US, Japan, trilateral, or India, Japan, Australia? We have quite a bit. We have quite a bit of alphabet soup here. Where does the G10, G11 figure in all this? Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Manish, and it's a pleasure to be on this webinar as well. Let me respond to your questions by making a few brief points. The first point I'd like to make is I think G11 is an idea whose time has come. I've noted very carefully what Ambassador Verma has said about President Trump. We look upon what he's saying as President of the United States here in India. So we've got to take it at face value and go along and respond to his initiatives as the President of the United States. Having said that, let me recall what he said about the bloc of G7 when he said it was outdated, and that is why it should include Russia, India, South Korea, and Australia. So while the non-inclusion of China in this is an indication of his clear intent, this has also been confirmed by the spokesperson in the White House, who said that China will be on the agenda at the summit. However, we should see this as an initiative which goes beyond China and is a grouping reflective of ideologically like-minded liberal democracies, which are also major economic powers in the Indo-Pacific. The second point I'd like to make is that there is still some misunderstanding in the general public about the nature of this invitation to a few countries beyond the G7. So while it is the prerogative of the G7 chair, in this case the United States, to issue guest invitations which reflects the priorities of the host and also the changing membership of the G7 or format on a permanent basis, of course, will require agreement of all the members. So already we've seen UK and Canada's opposition to the inclusion of Russia, which was mentioned before by Ambassador Sybil. And there are also Japan's reservations on South Korea. So this should be seen as of now as a one-off event. Our only hope in India, of course, will be that it will develop into a more permanent arrangement in the future. The third point I'd like to make is that the US initiative to expand the G7 meeting grouping against the background of rapid changes in the balance of power, especially in the Indo-Pacific, is due to the aggressive rise of China. And the US-China relationship has become decidedly adversarial, which has coincided with the COVID-19 outbreak originating in China, for which it is not prepared to take the responsibility or act as a reasonable state. Simultaneously, there's also been aggressive moves by China in the South China Sea vis-a-vis ASEAN countries like Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, in the East China Sea, and also vis-a-vis the seas around Taiwan and now on the border with India. So this has created new tensions in the Indo-Pacific region, which you have referred to, and that has resulted in a sort of pushback against Chinese actions. This is therefore a most appropriate time, in my view, for a grouping of major Western powers as well as ideologically aligned countries in Asia to come together to discuss, besides the China threat, ways and means to ensure a rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific, which will promote economic prosperity and stability in this region. Fourth point I like to make is that this is not the first time that other countries have been invited to G7 summits, and India itself has have been a special invitee to several summits, the last one being Prime Minister Modi at the Biarritz summit in France. In previous summits, the G7 met separately and then in extended meetings with invitees. We are not clear about how the forthcoming summit will play out, but the sense is that it will be a G10 or G11 format, though there are still questions about decision making. If all countries are treated as co-equals in decision making, then the presence of the three major countries from the Indo-Pacific, and that is India, South Korea, and Australia, would certainly ensure that the outcome has a bearing on future policies affecting the Indo-Pacific. Fifth point I like to make is that if the grouping is expanded to include South Korea, India, and Australia, then in effect, the G10 or G11 will include all Quad or Quad Plus members. So this will bolster the US Indo-Pacific strategy because the additional countries being suggested include South Korea and Australia, both allies of the United States. There's India, Japan, and Australia who are already members of the Quad grouping, while South Korea has been taking part in the Quad Plus discussions on the COVID-19 crisis. Sixth point is that all the invitees, barring Russia, have advocated the idea of a free and open Indo-Pacific, peaceful settlement of disputes, which is based on rule of law, rather than through unilateral or coercive actions. They've also advocated freedom of navigation and overflights. So these principles also find support in the discussions in the Quad and in the trilateral groupings of India, Japan, Australia, US, Japan, Australia, and India, US, Japan. So given the proposed composition, the expansion of the G7 will certainly supplement and complement the agenda of the Quad and also the trilateral groupings. We should also note here that the US Senate has recently approved the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, and Australia has launched a 10-year defense plan now to meet security challenges in the Indo-Pacific. And these developments in the Indo-Pacific will, first of all, act to encourage the Quad into a more concrete agenda of action, and will also perhaps lead it to now take more concerted action. The Quad Plus, as we know, is already meeting regularly every week to coordinate issues related to COVID-19 and related issues. And now, Manish, the final point, the question on whether the presence of Japan and South Korea and India in the G11 will act as a bridge between the East and the West. So, as you know, the East and West construct is traditionally mentioned in the context of camps led by Russia and the United States. However, this is not the case in my view here. Asia per se has always been represented in the G7 by Japan. So this initiative to expand the G7 is just a reflection, as I mentioned before, of the reality of the present times when Asia has become the engine of global economic growth. And because of the political, military, and economic ascendance and assertiveness of China, which does not play by international rules, there is a need to bring on board like-minded liberal democracies committed to a rules-based international order. So India should and has welcomed this initiative, which also dovetails with its aspirations to become a permanent member of the UN Security Council, as the G7 has an important say in the economic and political power structure of the world. So Manish, I'll stop there now for now and get back to with answers to any questions.